Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Humanity Matters Weekly. I am your host, Dr. Philip Fletcher, where we discuss and reflect on faith and philosophy, nonprofit leadership, and social issues. We want to engage with ideas on what it means to be a human being and to flourish as a human being in our world. Thank you for joining me on tonight. I will be with you for about an hour. I want to just keep this short and sweet, but if you want to participate, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook, please put in your question or your comment, okay? And I would love to engage with that. As always, you can connect with me on a variety of different social media outlets, whether on Twitter at Phil Fletcher, over on Facebook on my Facebook page, Dr. Philip Fletcher, over on YouTube. Just look up Dr. Philip D. Fletcher. Subscribe. I would really appreciate that very much. Subscribe. And then as always, you can find me on the World Wide Web, on the interwebs at philipfletcher.org, philipfletcher.org. Hey, I'm always looking for supporters. So jump on over to Patreon, put in my name, put in Humanity Matters, $5. I would appreciate your support. That support has been able to get me better lighting, better camera, better equipment to be able to broadcast and put out content that I hope is helpful. Also, if you miss any part of this, yes, it'll be available for you on YouTube, but also it'll be available on the Humanity Matters podcast, which releases typically on Monday. So if you miss any part of this and you like to listen as you work out, work around the house, all that kind of good stuff, hey, go over there and subscribe as well. I would greatly appreciate it. So we got some people chiming in. What's going on, Philip? What's going on, Todd? What's going on, Matt? What's going on, Laura? I'm glad you were able to join. Hey, take a moment. If you're watching this, just share this, tag somebody in it, as begin to dig into some good stuff on tonight on free speech and protest. Free speech and protest. So there's some things that I want to say to get this going. Want to provide some context as to why I'm doing this. So last night, as I was just scrolling, checking out what was going on after a long day, was in bed, I saw this. All right. So I saw this. Now, this is from the Olympic trials. All right. The hammer throw. Okay. The young lady to the left, Deanna Price, she won. Okay. And then there's a other young lady, and then Gwen Berry with the bronze. Okay. And so I was looking at this and I was like, man, that's America, right? That is full liberty on display, right? Freedom on display. We'll get into the whole difference between liberty and freedom in a second, right? But I was like, that's what America is like all about, right? First Amendment, okay, Constitution. We can get into the whole federalist, anti-federalist type discussion, but nonetheless, I was like, wow, right? So you have three women who are at the top of their game. Can we celebrate the women, right? These three women at the top of their game, taking this heavy thing, spinning around, letting that joker go, furthest one wins, right? So you got Deanna Price, this other young lady, and Gwen Berry. Okay, so I'm like applauding these women, right? The second thing is this, right? And put the picture back up again. You got Deanna Price. She is like beaming, smiling. She got the American flag behind her, right? And she is just like, yes, I'm representing America, right? Got it. Then you got Gwen Berry. Now, Gwen Berry, she got a little sass there. Got the hand on the hip, right? Got the head kind of cocked. I'm like, all right, sister, I see you, right? But she's not participating. They're not participating in what? The national anthem. All right. Oh, say, can you see, the whole thing. So she, in turn, just like Deanna Price, is exercising her freedom and liberty, all right, to put on full display, like she loves the flag. She's putting her hand over her heart. They're singing the national anthem. Gwen Berry is demonstrating also what it means to be an American, right? Because there's some things that don't sit right with her about America. And she has the opportunity in front of all these people, right? By virtue of the fact that she worked hard, she had a discipline, she blood, sweat, and tears, and was able to get third, and she's going to Tokyo to participate in the Olympics, right? And this young lady says, you know what? Not today. Not today, right? Now, this is not the first time she's done this, okay? But she was like, not today, not today. So I put this up, okay? It's America. It's America. Like, it's just straight up America. I'm like, cool. Cool. Then what happens is, Facebook feed starts chiming in. I wake up to a series of messages, right? Now, this guy, I'm going to be quite honest. Typically, I let things just pass on by. I let things slide. People can generally come on my Facebook page and they can say what they want to say. My only stipulation is you don't call anybody by their name, out of their name, right? Like, let's interact with one another. Let's have a peaceful discussion, right? So, hey, if you got a comment or question, put it in. I want to interact with you. So, I'm calling Dude out today because I invited Dude on tonight to have a civil discussion regarding free speech and protest, right? Like, I publicly invited him on. You can go back on my Facebook page. You can see where I publicly invited him on. He chose not to, but what I've seen all day today is that he's been on social media interacting with everybody else. So, Scott Parker, I'm talking to you, all right? So this is what Scott Parker said, right? Phil Fletcher, no, sir. You and this scumbag pathetic excuse for a human need a lesson in respect. Okay, so Scott Parker thinks I need a lesson and Gwen Berry needs a lesson. Okay, all right, I'm game. Second, what you both need is a lesson. This is his grammar, in that from someone who lost a loved one, defending her right to be a commie and your right to approve of it. Okay, so according to Scott Parker, right, he said that me and Gwen Berry needed a lesson, okay, from someone. I'm assuming he's referring to a military person. All right. And he is asserting that Gwen Berry is a communist because, now I want you to hold on to this. She's a communist because she's protesting, acknowledging the national anthem, standing up, hand on your heart, so on and so forth. So he's saying that she's a communist. And then he's saying, I approve of her being a communist. Okay. You, sir, are not the man I thought you were. Good day. Okay. So I sat on that for a second because I was like, well, cool. I'm all up for learning. All up for learning. Right. And I figured, like, hey, let me hear what Scott Parker has got to say. So I got up, did my usual disciplines. I Facebook publicly, since he responded to me publicly, I want to be the mature, younger guy because he's an older guy. Hey, Scott Parker, won't you come on and we can have a discussion? Now, if y'all have watched any of my discussions, I've sat down publicly and privately with all types of people, right? I've sat down with people with whom I agree with. I've sat down with people whom I have complete disagreements with, but I want to learn, right? I've sat down with white supremacists. I want to learn. I've sat down with people who defend the Confederacy. I want to learn. I've sat down with Hebrew Israelites. I've sat down with atheists, sat down with them, right? And I was like, bruh, you don't want to come on, right? But you're talking to all these other people in my thread, but you don't want to talk to the guy that you have the issue with, right? So Jordan Peterson says this, right? A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has it under voluntary control, close quote. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're seeing today, because my default is something else. But because I have a commitment to a particular religious philosophy, Thomistic personalism or theistic personalism, where I see that every man and woman is made in the image and likeness of God and their due dignity and respect, that's to be affirmed because it is existing in them, I said, let me step back and do what it is that I'm supposed to do, right? Where can I find the opportunity? And so I found, again, the opportunity, like, hey, let's have a discussion regarding free speech, protest, especially since we are about to head into the what? July 4th weekend. Gwen Berry not acknowledging the national anthem, issues that she's got going on with the state, right? And her freedom to exercise her grievance to the state in a public manner, just like Deanna Price sought to affirm, for whatever reason, putting her hand over her heart, singing the national anthem. So, Scott Parker, I gave you your opportunity. And in fact, you can still inbox me, and I would love to sit down with you and have a discussion with you, because you demonstrate a lack of courage by not having a civil discussion with somebody who's seeking to have that discussion with you. All right? I'm just saying that out loud. Okay, so secondly, full transparency. All right? Like I said, my religious philosophy is theistic or Thomistic personalism. Like I said, I see everybody being made in the image and likeness of God. They have dignity and worth. I want to affirm it as best as I can with the power of the Holy Spirit. I'm not seeking to demean you, dehumanize you, enslave you, control you, anything like that, because I firmly believe, because each and every one of us has been made in the image and likeness of God. And what type of God? A Trinitarian God who is what? Who is free. So that freedom is impressed upon us. Now, I found a complement to that in political theory regarding libertarianism. So, political philosophy, libertarian, love it. What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours. I'm not going to do you any harm. You don't do me any harm. I'm not going to put chains or put my hands or put a gun to you to take from you anything. Just like I don't want you to do that to me. I'm not going to do any type of aggression towards you. I believe that people should be able to move and work and live where they want to. Right? I believe free association, free exchange, right? Yes. Praise God. Freedom, right? So I found the complement to my Thomistic, theistic personalism in libertarian philosophy. That's that political theory, right? Whew. So this includes speech. So now we got to dig into something, right? What is liberty and what is freedom? So let's define our terms real quick, right? Because I'm going to get back down into some things that's taking us to July 4th and this whole thing with Gwen Berry and Deanna Price. Again, if you've got a question or anything like that, please drop it in because I want to get with you and interact with you. It's open discussion. All right. Just keep it classy. All right. So Oxford Dictionary defines freedom as, all right, the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. All right. Freedom is a German word. All right. So we do some etymology, right? All right. A German word that originated simply, it means the ability to make decisions or perform actions without, pay attention, external control. Right. So what I mean is this, or what it means is this. Okay. So when I move from my house, right, to across the street, nobody has forced me. Nobody has said, Philip, you're going to do this. And if you do not do this, you're going to receive some type of negative consequence. Or, Philip, if you do this, you'll receive a positive consequence. No, I am just acting freely. I'm just going to move across the street. Let's get that a little bigger, right? Freedom, right, is that I see, let me just bring this home, right? I see somebody who looks different than me ethnically, right? I see them sitting at a coffee shop, right? And so I say, hey, can I sit down with you and have a discussion with you? Nobody has forced me to do that. Nobody has forced me to say, hey, you're going to be with one another X amount of days, X amount of hours in the day. No, I'm freely associating with him or her. We're doing whatever exchange that we're doing. I get up and leave. He gets up and leave. Prime example. As you can see behind me, I like Legos. I like superhero stuff, science fiction type stuff, right? So consider this, that there's been times where I need to get a cool Lego that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I go and find it like on Facebook Marketplace, back in the day, eBay. I'm like, hey, will you take it for this much? Will you take it for that much? We come upon agreed upon price. We meet. I give him the dollars. He gives me the Lego. Nobody is involved. All right. No external forces. Now, what's liberty? Oxford Dictionary says this. All right. Liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's behavior or political views. All right. So liberty comes from the French. So freedom comes from the German. Liberty comes from the French. All right. It has French roots, which means freedom that has been granted by some sort of external element. All right. Typically our society or government. So if you will, as we get to the First Amendment, right? According to this dictionary, all right? So you have the liberty to speak freely. You have the liberty, right? The government is just simply enshrining what is naturally existing, right? You have the liberty to, I don't know, freely associate in your religion. Freedom of press, so on and so forth, right? We about to refer to this. Okay. Woo, I need to take a break. All right. All right. So essentially, thus liberty is the means to see freedom actualized. All right. Liberty is the means to see freedom actualized. All right. Another helpful understanding is freedom is the raw and unbridled ability to act, whereas liberty is bounded freedom. Caleb Ryan, y'all know him, look him up on Facebook. He wrote an essay about this, helped me out a lot to understand this. Another guy, Eric Reimer, were both helpful in this definition. All right. So freedom is like the raw, unbridled, like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Liberty is like, okay, yes. But essentially, what we're drilling down is this, all right, is that I believe it's important that we remember the importance of reflection, restraint, and responsibility. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Think about that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But here's the other thing. I don't need an external control to help me think through reflection, restraint, and responsibility. Because I'm looking at the person across from me has been made in the image and likeness of God. That's why I say theistic personalism, Thomistic personalism, and libertarian philosophy have a perfect complement for me in what I do in my life and my work. All right. So don't forget reflection, restraint, and responsibility. Hey, this is Dr. Philip Fletcher, and we are talking about an open discussion on free speech and protest. If you've got a comment or a question, just please put it on in the comment section. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. If you're on Facebook, share this video, trying to get as many people involved as we talk about a very important thing. All right. So U.S. context, the Bill of Rights. So here we go. So in the Bill of Rights, yes. All right. Hey, you got one of these, right? You got one of these. It's very helpful. Okay. It says this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Okay. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay. So you want to worship a Trinitarian God? Congress ain't going to stop you. You want to worship a tree? Congress ain't going to stop you. Right? Congress is not going to mandate that Christianity be the state religion. It's not going to mandate that Islam be the state religion. Buddhism, Confucianism, I don't know, whatever your higher power is, Congress is not going to mandate those things. It's against the law. All right. Next, or abridging the freedom of speech. We'll come back. Or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. That's keyword, peaceably. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. All righty. So, for transparency, I hold to absolute free speech. Okay? I hold to absolute free speech. Again, say what you want to say. But remember, reflect before you say what you're going to say. Sometimes show restraint. You don't need to say everything everywhere. Consider your context, consider the audience, so on and so forth, and be responsible. You have to own what you say, the positive as well as the negative consequences. I think we should take all those into consideration, and we don't need an external force to come in and say, you can't say this and you can say that. A friend of mine referred to me once as like, you do Parrhesian type work. Well, that's a Greek word, right? Means simply to speak candidly. Now, free speech goes all the way back to the Greeks and their leaders and their philosophers and how they thought it was important to freely speak, especially in manners pertaining to the government. That was important, that speech would not be restrained. All right. So I kind of own that, being a Parhesian. I think that is important. That's also why I believe in absolute free speech. Also, because I want to know what the other person sitting next to me believes, right? So that I know I can interact with him. I refer to you a book, John Stuart Mill, on liberty, wink, wink, okay? He talks about the importance of hearing ideas and hearing speech that challenges what you know already, right? Why? Because one of two things can happen. It either confirms what you believe, or it exposes a flaw in what you believe, which then propels you to go and study further in order that you can be closer to the truth. So that's why it's important to hear all of these different ideas, even the most objectionable ones. And so one of the beautiful thing about free speech is not that it protects the things that you like to hear. What free speech protects is the things that make you go, oh my gosh. So an article developed by the History Channel and its editors looking at the Constitution and specifically free speech, they say this, and I quote, "On a basic level, it means that people can express an opinion, even an unpopular and unsavory one, without fear of government censorship," close quote. So I'm coming back around to y'all. They're like, this chick is shameful. She should be like stripped of all her Olympic accolades. She shouldn't even live in this country, blah, 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 blah. All right. I shouldn't say blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. So let's talk about countries. The 10 most censored countries. All right. And this is from the Committee to Protect Journalists. The 10 most censored countries. Like, there's even places like for you to get on the internet that it's getting routed through the government. China, for instance, right? Iran, for instance, right? And there's people in those countries that don't know what the heck is going on unless their governments allows them to know what they want to know. Geez, that sounds like slavery. But anyways, the top 10 most censored countries. This is as of 2019. Eritrea, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Azerbaijan, Vietnam, Iran, China, Myanmar, Cuba. So I get kind of nervous when everyday people begin to say things like she should leave or they should leave. They're a commie. They're disrespectful. She's so disrespectful. She's selfish and shameful because this young lady chose to speak in a manner that just didn't align with your ideas. So let's talk about the ability to speak out against one's government. So y'all, let's be real. This Sunday, this weekend, right? There's going to be a lot of barbecuing, flag waving, right? There's going to be a lot of fireworks, people going to the lakes, so on and so forth. Why? So it didn't happen in 1619. All right. Thomas Jefferson wasn't born yet. But in 1776, okay, the shot heard round the world. That's what I like to call it. Right to the king, right? When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. All right, he goes through and lays out the long train of abuses by that king that you see and you celebrate in that play Hamilton, right? So he concludes, all right, that they pledge mutually to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, right? So it's signed by those men. And out of that, July 4th, 1776, these colonies declared their independence from Britain. These colonies didn't exist in 1619, right? These colonies which came a whole lot later, right? These colonies declared their independence from Britain, which turned into the Boston Tea Party. All right. Ooh, let me post that. All right. Which turned into the Boston Tea Party, which eventually turned into the Revolutionary War. All right. This liberal idea, listen to this liberal idea of individualism, the right of human beings to declare their own course, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, was taking root in these 13 colonies called America. Yes, I got it. There was slavery. Slavery was going on all around the world. All right, got it. Yes, women didn't have the right to vote. Got it. Yes, I got all that, right? But that shot heard across the world, right? Britain, right? That phrase that the sun would never set on the British Empire, so on and so forth. Well, it began to start setting. The Declaration of Independence was simultaneously an example of free speech and protest. Should those people have been ashamed? Just asking. Should those people have ignored the long train of abuses that were happening to them and just simply kept their mouths shut and just submitted to the state, the king? Because a lot of the comments I was getting on my Facebook feed would have me to wonder, whether or not some individuals who are commenting today, would they have been on the side of the colonies or would they have been on the side of the King of England? Just asking. Would they have told Thomas Jefferson, shame on you? Would they have told Thomas Jefferson, you need to be taught a lesson by some former British soldier who participated in some type of, we'll just say it, colonization and risked his or her life for the glory of the empire, which then brought all types of trauma and death to people with brown skin. Anyways, but needless to say, this free speech and this protest were enshrined as the national holiday, not a national holiday. It is the national holiday. So I really don't, if you want to celebrate 4th of July or not, whatever. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, it is the national holiday. And part of it is, it is symbolic because it codifies the importance of free speech and protest related to the founding of this nation. We our tax dollars go into our schools, public schools, whatever, and it lauds the Boston Tea Party, protest again. Let's look at last year. Right? So, protest, Gwen Berry. Protest. What do you see there? Black Lives Matter, right? I can't breathe. George Floyd said that. Hey, but look, protests on the other side. Michigan, those jokers exercising not only their First Amendment right, but also their Second Amendment right. So one group is protesting the actions of the state in regards to killing people. The other group, right, is protesting the actions of the state in regards to lockdowns. Protests, First Amendment. Now, the question is this: should all of those people leave? Are all of those people communists? I'm talking to you again, Scott Parker, and anybody else that's called Miss Berry a communist and should be ashamed of herself or stripped. I'm coming to y'all conservative, all right? Those of y'all on the right, the extreme right. Should those brothers that was up there in their camo and their weapons, you know, should they be put out of the country? Should they be asked to leave, right? Because they were in a symbolic place. They had a grievance. When is it appropriate? So I'm talking to the left. Those of you are on the left and extreme left. Those of you on the right and extreme right. I'm trying to figure out, when is it appropriate to protest the actions of the state? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. When is it appropriate? Something to think about. But then you have this. Wow. Right? Protest again. Minneapolis on flames, right? Black businesses being burned, right? And then still to this day, I don't know what that craziness was that was happening down in January 6th. I tell you this much, it wasn't no freaking insurrection. You can't do no insurrection without weapons. And according to Joe Biden, you can't do it. All right. But anyways, you need AR-15, you need F-15s and nuclear weapons. Ain't that what he said? I think that's what he said. All right. All right. Let me take some comments. Got about 20 minutes left. Paul Calvert says, wasn't the Olympics originally established as a form of worship for the pagan god Zeus? Wonder how many people are willing to be offended by this fact. It's a good point, sir. And then it was reinstituted back in the early 1900s. Did you know that women couldn't like fully compete to like the 1980s? I didn't know that. I was listening to talk by a trainer. She was doing training in a lot of Muslim countries. And she was talking about the history of women in Olympics and how they wasn't able really to participate until the late 1900s. Again, applauding the women that's up there on that podium. All right. Thanks for the comment, Paul. Appreciate it. Tyler says this. This looks kind of long, Tyler, but we'll read it. All right. We need to, as a country, stop the notion that, quote, liberal ideas, unquote, are inherently bad or flawed, as well as the notion that conservative ideas are inherently bad. Some of this is created from a sort of passion, but we have to be cautious that, quote, passion, unquote, doesn't cross the line into extremism. Because it is often the extremes of these ideas that tend to turn negative, just my opinion. Great comment, Tyler. Great comment. There's some studies that have been done on what would be considered left and right type ideas. And one of the things to pay attention to is that those who are progressive and those who are conservative both need each other, right? And I should say, if you are more progressive in your orientation, all right, you need persons who are conservative in their orientation. What do I mean? A person in a conservative type orientation will want to develop things, right? And he or she will want to maintain those things, right? But eventually, a movement can become a museum, which can eventually it dies. All right. So that's why it's important for a person with a conservative orientation. Jonathan Haidt, he talks about this. Look him up, Jonathan Haidt. A person with a conservative orientation needs a person with a progressive orientation because they can look at things. They can look at changes that are happening. They can propose new ideas. That way, there is the substantive things of what the conservative person created can continue on, because in its activity, it's more malleable without sacrificing those integral things. All right. But this as well, the progressive oriented person needs the conservative oriented person so that the progressive type oriented person does not run off the rails. Okay. So I hope that's echoing what Tyler said. Now, when you get into these extremes, left and right, okay, where what is verging on in is a whole lot of authoritarianism. What do I mean? Right? In terms, we're looking at specifically the context of speech, right? So in this case with Gwen Berry, there's almost this authoritarian bent to where she is to be excluded, right? She's to be alienated, and in some cases, dehumanized. I got a message from somebody that called her a piece of shit and associated me with them, right? I'm like, bro, right? And in some cases, wanting to use the state, conservatives, right, to say these words can be said, these words shouldn't be said, so on and so forth, right? The left, progressive types, you're kind of doing the same thing, especially in academic type circles, right? Social media type circles, right? By quote unquote canceling people. That's the language, right? But people are trying, persons on the right want to cancel Gwen Berry. But people on the left want to cancel people on the right as well. You can only use these words, these pronouns, right? If you go back to my show on Sunday, Brandeis just released their new words, their oppressor words that you can't use anymore, such as trigger warning. Now, hold on a second. Like for years, people have been using trigger warnings, right? This is a safe place on this university campus. I'm triggered, right? But now that's a word of the oppressor. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. So, the national anthem, the importance of symbols. So I'm talking about the national anthem. I'm talking about the flag, okay? Symbols embody something, all right? So with the flag, with the national anthem, it's supposed to embody these national ideas of freedom, liberty, all right? I know people use them exchangeable. Freedom and liberty, the ability to chart one's own course, independence, so on and so forth. So that when you see that flag, that's what you're supposed to think about. Now, some people in this nation may think that, but not everybody does. But that doesn't mean that they hate this nation either. They just don't. Just because they have a different perspective than you regarding a particular symbol does not necessarily mean they hate the nation. So symbols embody particular values and beliefs. The second thing is that symbols communicate things. Again, For some people, what I've learned on my Facebook feed today is that the national anthem, it communicates something endearing to them. But for other people, it communicates something else entirely different. I'd encourage you to go read the third verse of the national anthem. And then finally, these symbols have a value to members. So I'm sympathetic to those who have an anger, a revulsion to what Gwen Berry said. I'm sympathetic to you. All right. You, for whatever reason, have a level of affection with an A for the national anthem and the flag. Okay. And so it's understandable when something dear to you that you perceive as being attacked, you get into this mode where you need to respond and defend it. Okay. But again, just like Miss Berry has the freedom to use her speech, right? And I encourage her to reflect, and I encourage her regarding responsibility, and I encourage her regarding restraint. The same thing needs to be said to you, men and women, who hold with great affection these symbols of the United States. I don't treat them as sacred, right? I'll be honest with you. I don't even treat the cross as sacred, right? I know it symbolizes something, but I prefer the substance over the symbol. Something else we can learn about. So now the issue at hand. So what are we saying about Miss Berry? Should she leave? She's a commie. She's disrespectful, selfish, and shameful. Again, I have to ask myself, and I ask you, are these people disrespectful to the state? Are they selfish and shameful? Right? Just asking. That was our 2020. That was our 2020. Just asking. Again, when is it appropriate to criticize the state? For my people on the left, my friends, when have you criticized the state when your girl or guy is in charge? For my people on the right, when have you criticized the state? For you on the left and the right, the thing that y'all have in common is that both on the left and the right want to use the state to impose some vision of the America on everybody else. And you're willing to fine people if they don't fall in line. You're willing to jail people if they don't fall in line. And in some cases, Epstein, McAfee. Anyways. So, what are we saying about ourselves when a protest occurs on an issue our government is behaving to which we find disagreement? What are we saying about ourselves when we like, I'm just going to speak no evil, hear nothing, see nothing? What does that say about ourselves? If we're selectively saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, the state can do that to harm people, but the state can't do that. How about we just continually keep the state on its toes? Just asking. That was the beauty about this. When it was peaceful, both of these groups were both critiquing the state and saying you're going too far. You're doing too much harm to our lives, to our bodies, to our businesses, to our families. But what we did was we chose sides. I find it interesting. Now I'm coming from my Christians here. Okay. I find it interesting how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are lauded for rejecting a national symbol, right? You remember your Sunday school lessons, right? They wouldn't bow to the statue and they got put in the fire and there was a fourth in the fire, and they get celebrated for that. Miss Gwen Berry, she didn't bow, if you will, to a national symbol, and she gets eviscerated. Both Berry, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had a higher principle to which they were looking to. Now, one other thing for my vets. I don't understand. I need somebody to help me. How we conflate the national anthem with the military. The national anthem is everybody's song. How we get to that not standing for the national anthem, not singing for it, not putting your hand over your heart somehow is a slap in the face of the military. Where did that come from? My other thing is this. Why are we freaking even playing the national anthem at any type of sporting events or anything like that? Isn't what brings us together that sport or that event? Why politicize it? Why propagandize it? Again, July 4th is coming. It is within our national DNA to celebrate protest. It is in our national DNA, right? The culture of America, whether you are Black, white, Asian, Latino, right? Protest and free speech is embedded in our culture. And we should support anybody's freedom to peaceably protest their state, because there's a possibility, strong possibility, your human experience is not their human experience. And so they've had an interaction with the state that they just do not agree with. I don't know Gwen Berry's full story. I don't know what interaction with the state that she had. Hey, she's being an advocate, right? Now we can dig into the how factual what she is protesting against. That's a whole other discussion. But she still has the right to protest. She has the liberty, the First Amendment, to freely get up on that podium and not do nothing. All the reason she got up on that podium was to be recognized, to get her medal. That's it. That's it. That's why she did all that training. She did all that training to get a medal to go to Tokyo. Just saying. Just saying. Let's get to some more comments before we get out of here. Caleb. Oh, here we go. Matt. Conservatives at large feel anti-American protests should be shut down or stifled, and liberals feel anti-science protests should be shut down or stifled. How optimistic are you for the future of freedom of speech and individual liberty in general? Matt, I don't know, man. I feel like we are, there are these few that are consumed with just simply being right and not listening. People need to be heard. And one of the difficulties is not all the information is getting out there so that individuals can study and make up for their own mind. The other thing is labeling people as conspiracy theorists or things put forward as conspiracy theories. And I've said before, it's interesting how decades later, those things that were said to be conspiracy theories actually turned out to be actually true, but the damage is being done. So, am I optimistic? Am I hopeful? Yes, but it's going to require more people to have the courage to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to get this information out there. I'm simply just going to put this information out there, whether it's the first thing that you've heard or it's supportive material to other things that you've heard, so that, like I was quoting John Stuart Mill, so that you can get closer to the truth. Great question. Caleb Bryan, link to my essay that Phil previously mentioned, just in case anyone is interested in reading it. Yes, please go read it. It's a good essay. Jesse Wright, what are your thoughts on the line between free speech and a demonstration of public indecency, pornography? If you covered this already, I apologize. I'm late to the party. All righty. So, public indecency. Look, again, this is what I'll say. In terms of pornography, that's just against the law. The Supreme Court has already ruled that doesn't fall under free speech. All right. Defamation doesn't fall under free speech. Inciting someone to do violence to somebody does not fall under free speech as well. So that covers their pornography. In terms of public indecency, I think public indecency has a lot to do with culture. Okay. If you go to some other countries, people are just walking around with their stuff hanging, men and women, and this is part of their culture. Here, I would just assert that it's a cultural thing. If I saw somebody just walking around with their stuff, I'd be like, hey, you need help? You all right? They'd be like, I'm good. And I'm like, I'm just going to leave them alone. Again, I'm not going to aggress against them. They're not bothering me. Like, I've seen penises and TNA before. So for somebody else, not so much. Now I'm sure people are going to be like, what is Philip talking about? But I'm for real. Like, they're doing me no harm. If I have young kids around me, then I'm going to steer my young kids away so they don't have to see that. But, you know, public indecency, they're not hurting anybody. So that's what I would say to that. Hey, that might come back to bite me, but here I stand. I can do no other. Jesse, thanks for the comment. Greg Hauser, what do you say? Conservative right is extremely hypocritical considering cancel culture. They claim to be against, yet they cancel anything they don't like. Gwen Berry was not the first. Cardi B, LeBron James, Colin have all been canceled by them, and even though they were all expressing free speech. Yes, Gregory. So I will take that, but I'm also going to ask you, will you look at your own house, right? And let them know that they are behaving in a similar manner. That's one of the things I want to talk about. Look at your own house. Look at your own house, right? Yeah, conservatives are cancel culture, but progressives are cancel culture as well. So I think that is important. Thanks for the input, Gregory. Free Britney. Free Britney. You know that Britney Spears thing is pretty sad, right? It pretty is. All right. Now there is a question right there. What is truly sacred? Depends on the organization, depends on the nation. You know, for some reason they've deemed some things sacred. Carl Jung wrote this book. The title escapes me right now because I read through it. And Carl Jung works through how the state functions in a similar way as a religion, right? At the top, if you will, our president is the de facto leader of the state religion, right? Those other elected officials, those individuals put in place policies, doctrine, all right, that the citizens are to follow, right? And in order to enforce that, now, again, I'm bringing in Carl Jung. In order to enforce that, they produce these symbols, okay, to back up those things that are perpetuated by the elected officials, the priest class, right? And the high priest, meaning that elected leader. The other thing is this, is that he recognized was that for those individuals, the higher you go, the less those laws that they put in place affected them. So the laws put in place disproportionately impacted the regular citizenry, right? But at the very top, that leader avoided the laws. So it's something to think about. And in turn, they create sacred stuff, right? Yes, substance over the symbol. I firmly believe that. I really do. All right. Becca, I prefer the substance over the symbol. Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. All right. Bill Milburn. All right. If she was only there to get a medal, why did she come prepared with a t-shirt to use as a prop? Looks well planned to me. Bill, I don't reject that. I don't at all. Again, that's why I reference back that I think is important for reflection, restraint, and responsibility. So she has to assume the responsibility of everything that is coming based off of her actions. But still, regardless if she came prepared or not, she, as an American citizen or any American citizen, anybody in America, has the freedom and the liberty to use free speech and protest. It's America. It's America. Let me see. Greg again. I've seen some extreme conservatives online that want Barry arrested or killed. That's truly authoritarian. I agree, Greg. An authoritarian comes from the left too. It does. So, Greg, stand with me against all types of authoritarianism from the left and the right. Yes. All right. Finally, Laura. The way I remember it, Bob, Larry, and Junior all were like, hey, that big chocolate bunny, we don't think we should eat that whole thing. We think you're wrong, and we're not going to participate. And then no one liked it. Okay, so Laura wins for the VeggieTales reference. Awesome. Becca, look at your house. Oh, look at your house, quote unquote. Could go both politically and first and foremost, your little house, your family unit. Yes, ma'am. All right. Greg, thanks again for participating. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for joining me on this special edition of the Humanity Matters Weekly. Again, connect with me on my social media, especially on YouTube. I'm trying to hit that 200, right? Trying to hit 200. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel and all my other social media. If you like anything that you've heard, please go over to Patreon. Just put in my name or Humanity Matters. $5 a month. Helps me improve, get new material, great content, bring other great guests on. I appreciate it very, very much. So, as always, remember to be loved, to be kind, and to be generous. And remember to live in hope. We can do the impossible. Take care. God bless. When I say your name, it says you exist and that you matter. I can't transform what I don't think exists. I won't transform the person I don't think that matters.